Hi everyone, I'm in my backyard this afternoon, late afternoon. I'm sorry that I'm wearing a hat that is completely blocking or your view of me, but the sun's coming right down on me and I have a bit of a headache, which I think is from maybe tree pollen, I'm not sure. But anyway, just a really quick update, and then I will continue with a reading update, not outside, so that you can see the rest, so that you can actually see me. I expect we might see Suki in this kitchen window. She was just outside here and almost caught a chipmunk, and she is wound up. So what I mean by almost is that she caught the chipmunk and then thankfully it got away. So I wanted to update you on this Trollope I was reading in the new to me Palliser series. This is the first book, Can You Forgive Her? I finished this. I gotta tell you guys, I can't believe how fast I read this. And I'm only reading this at night before I go to bed. And I mean, I just couldn't stop. It's so, this is set in the city. Is it in London? I mean, it's in London, and then they're traveling, of course, all these high-end trips they go on. So it's not in a small town that this story takes place in. And it mainly circles around Alice Vavasor and who is she going to marry, and is she going to marry anybody? And it is a tangled web, like all of Trollope's novels. I don't think I need to explain plot or anything, because I mean, you're going to read this book if you want to get into the series, probably, and all I can say is it's as delightful as the Barsetshire Chronicles, and I'm even enjoying this more because it just feels more modern, maybe because it's taking place in large cities and written after. This is his next series, and this is after Trollope had left his job in the post office, or for the post office system, and so now he's like putting everything into this. Maybe that's why there's a bit of a different tone. And I am so slowly making my way through this Emile Zola, The Fortune of the Rougons. This is the first in the Rougon Macquart series. It takes place in the fictitious provincial town of Plassans, and this is during or right before the, is it Louis Napoleon Bonaparte's coup d'etat. And I gotta say, I'm struggling. I don't know if I'm even going to keep reading it. This is my very first thing in the morning read, and I'm just not enjoying it very much. Will I push through? I'm like halfway through. I don't know. It's not that the characters aren't interesting, it's just all of them are pretty, in one way or another, despicable. I mean, I can handle a book like that. I just don't know why this isn't connecting. I'm getting like, what's the word? Not irritated, but like, I'm just losing my patience. Like I just feel like I need something else. So this might just not be the right time for me. Who knows? That's a possibility of putting it aside, returning it to the library. Then I started reading this new release called All the World Beside by Garrard Conley. Garrard. Let's see. He's a best-selling author of the memoir Boy Erased, as well as the creator and co-producer of the podcast Unerased, The History of Conversion Therapy in America. He is an assistant professor of creative writing at Kennesaw State University. So this is his first novel. And it takes place in, what would you say, Puritan New England. So 1700s? Pilgrims? This is amazing. This is an extraordinary story. And just as compulsive as this is too. I'm reading this right before I go to bed too. And this is a story of two men who have a secret relationship, of course, in these times especially, and especially in Cana, Massachusetts, a utopian vision of 18th century Puritan New England. It's with, it circles around Reverend Nathaniel Whitfield, who has a family, and Arthur, who has a family. I'll have more to say about this, but the writing is modern. So I think that's why it's so compulsive. It's about Puritan New England and this particular community called Cana, and it's how these two people, these religious figures, met and how they have been able to be together very secretly every once in a while. That's all I have to say about it so far. It's a treat to read. I have a couple books out from, I'm reading an Anita Brookner. Is it called Misalliance or The Misalliance? I have it upstairs. I didn't bring it out. That's interesting. It's early days, so I'll have more to say about that in a bit, maybe the next part of this video. And then, I'm reading the Deborah Levy, the fiction that Cass talked about just recently. Early days on that one too. So far, very interesting. I'll have more to say about that too, probably on the next clip where you can see me clearly. I won't be in shadow. Hi again, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. Here I am a few days later. I have an update for you on All the World Beside. I returned it to the library, and it's the book is by Garrard. I think it's pronounced Garrard Conley from what I've now looked up. So this was a book I had just begun about the Puritans, Reverend Nathaniel Whitfield and Arthur. Arthur is a doctor. I think I said he was a religious figure, but the reason I said that was these are religious communities and they believe in awakenings. And this doctor has, I think, identified a couple children or people that have gone through some awakenings, or he's identified what might be somebody having even epilepsy is actually what they think is an awakening. So anyhow, this story is about their relationship. And when the book opens, I don't recall how but that Nathaniel and Arthur, very gently, which is what I liked about it. Like the story doesn't somewhere explicitly say, but in the beginning, somewhere in the language, that they have a secret relationship and they just care so deeply about each other. And there's something about, I think it's Nathaniel's son, Ezekiel, that Nathaniel and Arthur refer to Ezekiel as like their child, their love child. But I don't know why they think that. I actually don't know if it's ever been explained. Like, is it because right after they were together or on the same night, that's when they know Ezekiel was conceived, or when he was born with Nathaniel's wife? I don't know. Hence the issue with the book that I had. So I was very fascinated with the story. I was very fascinated with the writing. But then the book didn't give me enough detail about anyone, really. And so I would often get people mixed up. I would often get Nathaniel's wife, who I think was Catherine, mixed up with Arthur's wife, whose name I don't recall. I would sometimes get the children mixed up. And then some chapters would start off with Catherine, Nathaniel's wife, like out in the field or something with Sarah and Ezekiel, but I wasn't clear about why they were there. I was disappointed by that because, I read the whole thing, but I kept reading it because I liked what I was reading in the beginning, but I felt like, wow, I don't feel like I didn't go further than the surface level. So afterwards, I looked this book up and saw a couple reviews, but one of them was the New York Times. And there I heard the reviewer, whose name I didn't write down, say the same thing. The reviewer's thoughts were my thoughts. He or she was a little more brutal than that, really. But yeah, I felt my reading experience in that review. So if you're curious and you have read it and you want to read that review, then I would just, I will try to link it in the show notes. But depth of character was the main issue. Okay, that's that. What am I reading now? Well, I went to the library. Oh, so I was walking into almost at the library building, and I realized that I was going to want to wrap up my experience with All the World Beside. So I took a picture, which is what I've been showing you. And then the same thing happened with another book, which is The Misalliance by Anita Brookner, that I haven't talked about yet. And I'll just say, like, this is my fourth, at least, Anita Brookner this year for some reason. And it just wasn't my favorite. It was weird. It's a little, I think it's one of her later ones. And it's about a woman who is just always been very even keeled, even when her husband left her for a younger woman. And then because she's by herself and just volunteering a couple days, she ends up, through a series of circumstances, meeting this woman and her daughter, a daughter who has chosen not to speak. It's not her daughter. It's a girl, 7-year-old girl who this woman, Sally, is looking after. And I don't know. I feel like it was just a Brookner that I didn't care a lot about. And it had like this weird, almost predictable, but too on the nose ending, which is one sentence at the end, one sentence. And I thought, I don't know, this must be, I don't know the dates of when Anita Brookner was writing, but it felt to me, I think this was written in 1986. It felt like, okay, too predictable. I don't know. But, you know, that's what you're going to get when you're reading through someone's oeuvre, I guess. I think I mentioned, I'm not sure that I had, and now I've started reading The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. Yeah, I did mention this because I had said that Cass Krug, that's the name of Cass's channel, had just talked about this. And it's a fiction, which I have never read any of Deborah Levy's fiction. It's really interesting. It says it's 1988, and Saul Adler, a narcissistic young historian, has been invited to communist East Berlin to do research. In exchange, he must publish a favorable essay about the German Democratic Republic. So on, so on. He's got a girlfriend. This is all, the thing I'm about to say happens in the first couple pages and is an interesting thing that you know going throughout the story, is that he gets glanced by a car on Abbey Road. He is there to have his picture taken on the zebra stripe from the Beatles album, famous cover. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. It's a little weird. We know something's happening because he's injured from being hit by the car, and his mother was killed by a car. I think that's what I've just read. We don't know what his injury is because now he didn't feel like he was really injured, but he's sore, but something's going on with his gut, and now he's going to East Berlin. I don't know. I don't know yet. It's kind of wacky. And I don't know if I mentioned this or not. And then I was watching one of Sophie's latest videos, Bibliosophie, and she had just read My Face for the World to See by Alfred Hayes, one of my all-time favorite books from last year. I then went on to read the second Alfred Hayes. I might have just read that this year or sometime in the not too distant past, and it was all right. And she mentioned that he actually wrote 3 books, and it's kind of a loose series. And this is called The End of Me. This is the 3rd. The minute she said that, I was Googling and got it out of the library. So here it is, The End of Me, this beautiful NYRB, just like the other ones are. This looks new, though. Hi. I see Suki over there on the sofa, and I have my knitting out, and she's not used to being around knitting. She doesn't really care about it too much anymore, but I just don't want her to get herself in trouble. I haven't started this, but yeah, I know I get library books out that I never start, but I'm definitely going to try this because I'm a big fan of Alfred Hayes. And what else have I gotten out? I've just started a hold that I just got in, which is Knife by Salman Rushdie. I've never read Salman Rushdie. This will be my first. And you could expect, number one, a memoir by Salman Rushdie is going to be so good. But then a memoir about this horrific event is hard to read because he goes into some of the physical aspects of the attack. But as you would expect, there's some scenes from his earlier life that are weaved in to the situation around the threat on his life by the time the Satanic Verses is published, and how he feels about that book, what this whole event was in Chautauqua, this festival, the Writers' Festival he was at a year or so ago, 2022, August 12th, 2022. What was going on in his life right before then? He talks about his lovely wife and how they met. He's just so good at sharing internal experiences. I could just sit down and read this thing in one gulp, but I'm trying not to. I'm up to page like 40, and I read all of this morning because I just did not want to stop. It's just so good. Actually, I knew this at the time, but I'd forgotten that he was in Chautauqua he was at the Chautauqua Institution on stage representing the City of Asylum writing program, writing residency, which is in Pittsburgh, and is through it's a project, and it's through the City of Asylum project / Alphabet City Bookstore is on the north side, and I've been there, and it's lovely. So Meditations After an Attempted Murder, I could just tell, could easily be my most favorite nonfiction this year. If I'm, just throwing memoir into the whole big category of nonfiction. Yeah, so I have a couple other books from the library, but I don't know. I have a Barbara Cummins, The Juniper Tree, but I don't know. I haven't even really read too much about that. And then I have a Margaret Drabble. Right before I left the library, I just thought, you know what? Let me just pick. I'm not going to pick another Brookner, but I wanted another like mid-century writer. And I have hardly read any Drabble. I've only read two. The Millstone, I don't think I'm going to get better than that. And it's a weird, Jerusalem the Golden, which was interesting. And I've read, I think, just the one Barbara Cummins, Our Spoons Are from Woolworths. No, I read the other one too, The Vet's Daughter. So I'm not sure if I will start either one of those. I have some holds I saw that are in from the library, but I don't know what they are. So that'll be good. I have just started it is early days. I've just started my part-time job at a library, not the library that I go to pick up books most of the time, which is the Carnegie Library main branch. I'm working at another library, and it's large also. And for those of you new here, I retired at the end of the year from my full-time career of 40 years. And I decided one of the things I was going to try is to work part-time at a library. And so here I am. I'm working at the circulation desk, and you work with someone else. So there's always someone at the circulation desk, and you're doing things. There are jobs that you're doing with the books while you are in between patrons. So that's fun. And then one of the shifts, so I'm working half-day shifts a couple days a week, and one of the shifts is a role called paging, which is taking off the shelves at the beginning of the shift all the holds that have come in from patrons and also people from the entire Allegheny County library system, and and doing things with those to mark them to go to the appropriate place. And then you are doing a lot of reshelving. So all the books that have come in that the prior page from the day before, and the ones that are just coming in during the day, are you have to reshelve fiction and audiovisual and nonfiction. And I also love that job. So I love both roles. It's early days. I'll keep you posted. Thank you for joining me so much. Please feel free to continue the conversation in the comments as always. And I'll see you on the next one.